So continue your story
Yeah,
about what happened on
yeah.
break.
So, one of the kids, I wasn't in the gym when it happened, but he must have fallen or somehow twisted his knee, so his kneecap was sideways, so like his knee was dislocated. So I got the call from one of the coaches that they needed us to take him to the ER, and so I was kind of rushing because I was like, oh my God, this poor kid is in so much pain, and so they got him into the back seat of the truck and he was like really chill. So, very very quiet about it. I kept checking on him, and he was calling his mom. I texted her just so she had my information and everything. So, we get to it was like 20 minutes away, the ER. It was a very small hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. We got like a front row parking spot. It was like the weirdest thing. Um, and when we go to get him, so I went and grabbed a wheelchair, and then when he went to get out of the truck, the other chaperone was going to help him out. It
Yeah.
went in back into place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we were kind of like, oh, okay. And we're like, well, we're here. Let's get him checked out anyway. And so yeah, so I guess it had happened to him twice
Oh,
before that his knee
yeah.
went out of place. So, um, yeah, so his parents, they're going to take him for a follow-up and everything. But yeah, so that was eventful, I guess. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, I guess, like going to the
Yeah.
ER. But yeah, so and then there was another kid the last night who was complaining that he fell on his arm
Oh,
again, playing in the gym. Um but I have to say this group was so good. Again, I said the same thing last year, unless they were just really good about being sneaky about things,
hmm.
which I don't think. I think they were just really well-behaved kids.
Oh,
Um, and we had a lot of freshmen this year. So I think they were all very, very well behaved. They had fun. We went to Charleston for the afternoon and evening on Wednesday. Um, and the one thing I have to say is that I was really impressed was that we didn't have any stragglers. There's always like
oh,
that
yeah.
one kid that's always late or anything.
Hmm.
We would
Off on
tell
their
them,
own, going the other
yep.
direction. Yep.
So we would tell them the time that they had to be somewhere, and like the whole group was there by like 5 minutes early. It was pretty impressive. So
That's
yeah,
pretty
so
amazing.
it
Yeah.
was it was a good trip. It was cold. It was very cold for down there, but I know it was a lot colder up here.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but they did miss the water time. I think it was Thursday and Friday morning. They couldn't get out. It
Mm.
was too cold. The air temp and the water temp together was too cold.
Yeah.
So, and it was windy the first couple of days. They did go out the first couple of days. And I think I went out a few times and took some pictures, and so did the other chaperones. And yeah, but I think, it's so great to see them like getting to know each other, kind of working through like, having to live together in small quarters. And Hannah, when we were talking last night, she's like, I miss Camp Bob, and it's like that
Aw.
says a lot when you're
Mhm.
not eating foods that you're used to eating, you're not sleeping in your own bed, you're wearing usually dirty, wet clothes more than once a
Yeah.
day when you go
Yeah.
out for practice.
Oh.
But yeah, so it was a good trip.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet that she's like, oh, I
Mhm.
miss it. Like,
Yeah,
like it's always so nice when when your kids have those like type of experiences that are kind of or
hmm,
life changing. You know what I mean? Like she'll
sure.
remember
Yep.
that, she'll remember these trips like for the rest of her life and look back on it fondly. So that's so cool that like that you chaperoned because it always,
Hmm.
it always takes a village to do stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like training trips are just it just takes a lot of people and
Hmm.
coordination. You need chaperones there. So if someone dislocates their knee, that you can send two parents off to go do
Yeah.
that without having to like leave the other kids unsupervised. So like
Mhm.
it just goes to show that you guys have really a really great network and really great parents and really great coaches to, and because
Yeah.
a lot of times coaches, it's not their only job, so they're taking
Hmm.
time away from a regular job to go do
Yep.
this. And not, I hate to say regular job because coaching is a regular job.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of times coaches have two very important jobs that they're trying to balance, and to be able to take a whole week away, and to be able to be there and be the supervision on the water and, you know, a little bit off water too. I mean, it's a big deal. So,
Yeah.
yay! My hats off to you guys for planning, executing, and completing safely the trip. And you know, the highest risk for dislocation is previous dislocation. So if this kid
Mm.
was someone who dislocated his knee
Hmm.
prior, then you know it just puts you at greater risk for it to happen again. So
Hmm.
you guys did all the right things, and sometimes
Hmm.
it's like that, like you know, shoulders, knees, or whatever. If someone dislocates and then you know, they go and they move and it pops back into where it needs to be. So, and then but
Yeah.
there's always the ER to help if it doesn't do that, so that they can be feeling better. So
Yeah.
did the novices like did you see like a marked change in like what they were able to do on the water beginning of week versus end of week?
Um, so I'm trying to think if I saw them. I mean, I'd probably have to ask the coach because there were so many. So our team had three coaches and Burnhill's had two coaches,
Wow.
and between the teams, they kind of mixed people up a little bit with the boys and the girls. So they really wanted to keep like Shen rowing together with their coaches and Burnhill's rowing with their coaches because we're kind of leading up to the spring season where we're, separately scholastically. So, like I don't know, I mean I'm sure they made improvements. Hannah was stroking a quad and the other boys in her boat were all the ninth grade boys. She was, they were doing pieces and of course they did not want to follow, so like they were like excited, getting like let's go fast and do power tens. She's like, calm down, fellas. So it was a interesting combination of some of the lineups that they had together. Um, but I'm sure they did improve. They have a pretty big group. I mean, for the different age groups that we had down there, the most was the Shen freshman boys. So I would say
Oh,
they're
wow.
probably going to be quite the force, maybe this year and
Mhm.
maybe continuing on. I just wanted to say earlier you were talking about like how it's going to be like lasting memories. So I'm still part, like I'm kind of oversee and help out with the Burnt Hills alumni Facebook page. And while we were down in Charleston, I saw a post from one of my former, I think he was rowing with me. He's a few years younger than me, but he was on the team when I was rowing, not when I don't think when I was coaching. And his dad was very supportive of the team, and he helped build the boathouse. Like there was a whole group of parents, like you talk about it takes a village. Like this
Mhm.
was after I graduated, but the team together and all the parents, they put together this huge group that helped fund and build and like draw up the plans. And one of them was, I think, an architect, and like they got construction crews that were from the community, and they built our boathouse. And he passed away. Sometime, I guess, last week.
Oh, goodness.
But we shared that on the Facebook page, and so many people were posting like how they remembered him and their support and but yeah, it was kind of nice. And then other people, when I posted pictures of Camp Bob, were kind of reminiscing that they remember their time there. And I mean, the team from Burnt Hills has been going there since the early days of the program in the late 90s. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of memories, and it hasn't changed at all since.
Aw.
I
That's
mean,
the best.
they've probably they've done a good job maintaining it, but like there's, no new, as far as I know, no newer buildings. Everything kind of looks the same as it did back in the day.
Yeah, maybe we could, you know, that's something that, you know, as this podcast grows, maybe there, you know, we could start sponsoring stuff like that and doing like little fundraisers for, you know, for those little places in the rowing
Yeah.
community that are so important. Like it's
Hmm.
just, you know, the people who run that place keep keep that whole ecosystem alive as far as like it being affordable for teams to do, close enough for teams to do, makes sense, weather-wise and those types of things. Like, really, it really takes like all of us supporting, different rowing communities, different rowing boat houses. I always think of the idea that like, if every person who ever rowed kind of if just once a year gave $1 to the boathouse that
Hmm.
they rode out of. I mean, it's like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. I mean,
Hmm.
it's amazing what those boathouses could do with those resources,
Yeah.
things that they could have, things that they could improve. There's a lot of times, things that you just don't improve or change because there just aren't funds for it. Um, when I was working at Genesee Waterways Center, it's just, it was an old building and, things break and their relationship, they have a relationship with the city. So the building is actually owned by the city, but the Genesee Waterways for 501(c)(3) runs the actual boathouse. So as far as like they manage the docks, they manage like they buy small equipment that's for the actual space. So when you have resources, it makes it easier to make things a little bit nicer for your rowers, or
Yeah.
it gives you the opportunity to like market and
Hmm.
expand and bring people in. But I
Hmm.
think we've talked about this before that like the fact that like rowing doesn't do the best job keeping its alumni
Yeah.
interested or involved in some type of small way, whether it's
Yep.
like, if somebody asked me, $1 every year for
Hmm.
for the UB boathouse.
Yeah.
I'd throw $1 their way. And how many of us were, there's 20 or
Yeah.
30 people on a team every year. Um, maybe, I mean, I don't know if they got up to 50 people, but
Hmm.
say there's 30 people times 20 years. I mean, that's quite a bit of money that you could be
Yeah.
doing whatever with for your team. And it could be new jackets for the kids,
Hmm.
some unis, some pogies to keep their hands warm. I mean, those types of luxury kind of things would be, kind of a
Yeah.
cool way for everybody to kind of give back to their boathouses. So yeah, that's amazing because a lot of times boathouses get built by just like,
Hmm.
it's a bunch of people who kind of get together and like an architect who just kind of, lends their services. And I mean, one of our local boathouses was built really kind of like piece by piece. Like they didn't raise any funds as far as like having a big fundraiser, but it was like, oh, somebody knew a concrete guy and somebody knew a
Hmm.
steel building guy and somebody like they just knew all the people and just kind of pulled extra supplies. People donated supplies and they have a beautiful boathouse. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Um, and you were talking about well, earlier in another podcast we were talking about like the history of UB, and I one of the things I did down there in my off time was I did do some more research trying to find information about Buffalo. So I was able to find a way to look at some of the old yearbooks from Buffalo,
oh
which I
wow.
honestly don't know, did not realize
They're actually
maybe at
yearbooks.
one point I knew we had a yearbook, but I totally forgot that, the Buffalonian.
Mhm.
Um, and then I looked to see if like in our senior years, so 2000 for you and 2001 for me, if we were in there and neither of us were, like our pictures.
Okay.
So it like Buffalo obviously didn't do a very good job of promoting having seniors pictures.
I did take a senior picture.
You
Because
did?
I have a picture of
Okay.
me from senior year in a cap and gown, and I don't remember. Like I don't even know if my parents ordered it. Like it was
Hmm.
like there is a picture floating around somewhere in because my dad was like kind of um my dad
Yeah,
was
to
kind of like
send.
our historian for our family. So there's like a picture with how some pictures have like proof written on them.
Yeah, yeah.
So he has a picture of a picture that says proof across it, and I'm in a cap and gown, and it's senior year, and but I don't know where that picture went. It didn't go into the yearbook, I guess. So
Unless I just couldn't find you, and that very much could
were the
be.
crew pictures in there?
Yeah, so I'm gonna show you if I can
Ah,
get this. I always never know how to get this with the
'cause I have an
thing in the
old
top.
I have an old media guide, a crew media guide that I still have, and I think that was from maybe that was my senior year, and um oh wow. Oh,
So,
cool.
yep. So this is the women's page from 2000, I think, if that's
Okay.
right. Let's see. Oh, 99. Okay. So you were on the
Oh
team
God,
that
that's
year.
me. That's terrible. I must have been tired.
I don't know if
Looking down
that's
at
you or
my
Cindy.
shed.
I can't tell. You think that's you?
Well, maybe it's not me because I don't remember wearing a headband. And
Yeah, I think that's
I didn't usually
Cindy.
put my hair in a ponytail, but we both wore glasses.
Yeah, now that you said that, I was like, well, maybe it is Adrian, but I was thinking it was Cindy. Um,
I don't
okay,
remember
so
wearing a headband. Headband, I don't remember. I mean, like a hat was my jam, but maybe I don't
hmm
know, maybe in the further down picture.
Yeah,
That
let's see if
that
I
looks more
can
like
zoom in
Cindy
here.
than me.
Um,
Sorry for those. Cindy and I
yeah.
were the only two black people on the team, so
I'm
so
not sure.
sometimes
Zoom
it was a toss up. She was shorter than
in.
me, but in the
Yeah.
boat, like we sometimes did look like the same person. So I know my dad had taken pictures at once. I was like, "Oh, Dad, that's Cindy. That's not me."
I think that is Cindy
Is it
because the
Cindy?
yeah, that it looks,
I don't know.
I
Maybe.
don't know. I would think, well, that wouldn't have been novice either because that wasn't our
Mm-mm.
freshman year. Um, okay, so the other one, so this was, oh, this one I have to get. Okay. Is it this one? Nope, not that one. Okay, go away. This one. Okay, so this one is the one that says that the club program started in 89. So I know that we
Oh,
were trying to figure out when the program started overall, not just as varsity.
mm-hmm.
And it says Joe Krikowiak's name in here. So he was the person behind starting the program in 1989, and he was still coaching the boys team when we were there rowing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
probably after that for a few years too.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of interesting. So this was my senior year. So I know that
Okay.
you're not in these pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I might have shown this picture in a previous podcast because some of this looks familiar. Um, but yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And so I saved those. Yep, so I'm
Yeah.
working on collecting that information for the UB history.
Love it.
And then there's this one. I just got such a kick out of this article. So this was from October of 98 in the Spectrum, which is our
Mm-hmm.
newspaper at UB.
Yeah.
And I just love this. Merrily, merrily, merrily down the stream, not by a long shot.
Oops. Rough time.
And then the caption here, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Boat.
Oh, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, so that was an interesting little article here. But this was also mentioning that we had a boat naming ceremony, and that was
Oh,
for the Nelson Townsend and the
yeah.
Student Association. Um, yeah, so that was,
And those boats actually still exist.
do they really?
Yeah, so I saw those boats listed on Road 2K maybe like a year ago,
Oh my
and
God.
they were in Canada. They were somewhere in Ontario, and they were, you know, selling them for like 200 bucks or something like that because they're Dirigos and they're
Yeah.
from 1998. So I'm sure that I mean, like that, and they should have been selling them for free. They should have just been free to a good home, but somebody
hmm
probably needed the parts. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I remember those. I remember those
hmm
two boats. Those are you guys did you guys win Dad Bills? Did you come in second?
For the lightweight eight, we
Or
came in
wait,
third.
you came in
Yeah.
third. And that
Yep.
was I think you guys did that in the Townsend, if I remember correctly. You
That
guys didn't you
sounds
guys
right.
did you guys rode that boat?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I might have to look. I think I have a picture of us, but maybe you could see the name of the boat. I'm not sure. It was definitely a yellow Dorigo that we were
Hmm.
standing in front of. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Affordable
hmm
boats, very affordable boats, you know, they made sense
hmm
at the time and wow,
I
that's
mean,
so
are
cool.
they still around as a company?
Oh, don't quote me. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Well,
I potentially.
yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, so I did create our Instagram,
Hmm.
and every time. we've been launching our episodes on Monday. I've been trying to create stories and like including anything we mentioned during our podcasts.
Okay.
So I'll do a little digging, and if they are a company, I will mention them, and
Yeah.
maybe we can revitalize Dorigo.
Yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
I'm guessing that maybe they got absorbed or bought out, by somebody. I definitely don't see them very often, but
Every
we
once in a
definitely
while I
enjoy
see
them.
one. Every once in a while.
Like a
But
newer one?
not a newer one.
Okay.
Like sometimes I see the white ones. I know that at the boathouse we have two Dirigos sitting on low boys just outside, like,
Yeah.
slowly deteriorating and dying. I mean, people do that. They just leave
Yeah.
eventually your boathouse, you just don't have enough room inside, so then you
Yep.
leave some boats outside, and then slowly but surely, like it's like that thing that you're like, oh, I'm gonna use it. I got all the parts
Hmm.
for it. I'm gonna use it, and then it just sits there until somebody's like, all right, get out the sawzall and cut it into pieces. It's always so sad
Um,
when you cut
it is.
yeah.
Yeah, it is sad. We definitely have a graveyard. Actually, I should take a picture of it of
Oh,
Dirigos in on the side of our boathouse. And so they did make planters out of some of the older boats.
oh, yeah.
So yeah, so they're outside our boathouse, and somebody usually like puts some potted plants in them every year.
I
So
mean, they're cute.
yeah.
I mean, they're like somebody had asked me once, they're like, "Oh, could I buy those boats and turn them into a barge?" And I'm like, or like they wanted to
Mm,
use them underneath a dock to like float their dock. And I was like, I don't know if that will work, but I mean, as long as the ends are still watertight, it depends on how much weight you're putting in the middle.
yeah.
Like they are made to support the weight of the rowers. So I think if you did something equivalent to that and the boat was still in good shape, like you could float something on top of them, like kind of like a barge-esque kind of dock kind of thing. But
Hmm.
yeah, I wish there was a good way to like, dispose of these older boats, like other than just cutting them up into pieces that fit into your garbage can. That's pretty much
Yeah.
what most clubs do. And then
Mhm.
then you pillage the parts, like
Yep.
you take the seats out, take the shoes out, the riggers, the bolts for the riggers. I mean, all that hardware is worth keeping.
Hmm.
Because foot plates are like, I mean, to buy a fresh foot plate can be like $300. I mean, depending on
Hmm.
what you need and what type of boat it's going into. I mean, you can rig up a lot of different things with old rowing parts. It's just that people just don't do it, and it's
Hmm.
much easier to get, and it's much more fun to get a brand new shiny boat. But um, they're really made to last quite a while, and they're beautiful as far as like you put them up on the wall somewhere. We've all been to like an Applebee's that has a four sitting up there, and you look at it, you're like, where did that four come from? What happened to it? And
Hmm.
I know one of the boats had fallen off the trailer for when I was well, before I was coaching Mercy, it was like the year before I got there. And that boat ended up in a restaurant, like because you can total the boat and
Hmm.
then it's not floatable anymore, but like just with some paint and stuff, it looks completely normal. Like it's
Hmm.
amazing how little damage can
Hmm.
total a boat. Like I'm
Yeah.
always so like we had a local team there where they were turning, like their trailer was turning to go down like this alleyway, and they took like I think it was like the stern off of a double and the stern off of a four.
Oof.
Otherwise, the boats were in complete fine shape,
Hmm.
and they were totaled. But our one of the local clubs, and I didn't know that there's like a page like an auction page basically that some of these insurance companies do. So occasionally rowing shells, if depending on what companies have the insurance policy on a rowing shell, when something gets totaled, they'll pay out the team and then they'll put that up for auction. I don't know how, I mean, like I don't know how much they usually sell these damaged boats for, but I mean you can get really nice stuff if you just know
Hmm.
where to look. Like I just,
Yeah.
but it is just really interesting because those boats were damaged. Another person from another club who liked to repair boats talked to the insurance company, found out when the auction was happening, got the double because it was like this, it was a cute double. It's called Double Trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like a Vespoli lightweight double. Like
Mm.
it was for teensy weensy little high school gals, like eighth grade,
Yeah.
ninth grade. Like after ninth grade, everybody's too big to get into this boat. Like I sat in that boat at one point
Uh-huh.
and rode it once and like got a slide bite that I still have a scar from on on my leg because that boat is that small. And
Wow.
like so they fixed it up and they use it at their they have a Rochester inclusive rowing. So people with low vision, people with disabilities, that type of thing. But they tend to get like young kids, and this is
Hmm.
like the perfect boat. You can put like a really small adult, like like a petite,
Hmm.
older woman who knows how to row. You can put her in the bow, and then you can put someone who's learning to row in the stern. But it's a perfectly sized boat because a lot of times that's a problem. Like just
Yeah.
the equipment is just too big for someone to learn efficiently.
Hmm.
But yeah, that boat was totaled and they repaired the stern and they're using it. So
Wow, that's so cool.
yeah, so a lot of times, like, it doesn't take much for the boat to not be usable by the actual team, like, especially if you don't have somebody who can fix it and
Yeah.
have the time to do that. Because, I mean, they took a whole spring and were fiddling around with a bunch of, retirees who work at that club who, like, wake up every morning looking for something to do. Those are the type of people who have time to, like, fix a boat
Hmm.
like that and really take the time to let it dry and sand it and
Hmm.
paint it and get it, get the paint so that like it looks like it never happened. I mean, like the boat's perfectly perfect. I mean, like it looks like
Hmm.
it never ever happened. But yeah, but I was really surprised by the process of like what happens to a boat when like it falls off the trailer or
Hmm.
like there's like a whole thing insurance wise that kind of has to happen. But there's these boats that are, sitting on auction pages that you can pick up and if you're an adventurous person, you can fix up something pretty nice. So
Yeah, speaking of which, how is your double doing? I know you haven't had it out recently, but like in the
yeah.
fall, how
Yeah,
was
it
it?
did. Yeah, it's still holding on, still holding strong. We put the pair riggers on it,
Hmm.
and we had to restring the steering, and I really didn't do that the right way. You really need like old school coat hanger with like so that you can grab the string and then pull
Hmm.
it so that it's sitting towards the top of the hull. So I think what I need to do is I need to turn the boat so that it's upside down, so guts
Hmm.
down, and then go in there and restring it and make sure that the strings aren't getting caught on anything because the other thing is that the shoe is like really, really big, and I'm gonna have to break down and order myself some shoes that actually fit because that
Hmm.
will make it easier to turn the actual shoe. Because when your foot is only like I have a big foot, so like I have like a men's 10 foot, but the shoe is like a 13, and so I was like stuffing like socks at the bottom of it so that my foot was all the way up so that I can actually turn it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of resistance in the wiring, so at one point or another during the winter, I'm gonna have to like when it gets a little bit warmer, so I
Hmm.
can sit and kind of play around with it because it's one of those things like your arm like has to be big enough to kind of get all the way in there. And I shouldn't have taken the steering out, but at the time, like I was like, oh, I'm never gonna use this. I'm never gonna put the pair riggers on. And then of course you put the pair riggers on, and you're like, oh crap, now I gotta restring this thing. So. But other than that, it's doing fine, still floating,
Hmm.
still usable, and an example of a boat that was going to be,
Hmm.
completely cut up and thrown into the dumpster because they just didn't need it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It takes so much effort to sell a boat, especially
Yeah.
a broken boat. Like,
Hmm.
people come and kick the tires on that. You'll spend so much energy, like it's not even worth it. So they were just gonna cut it
Yeah.
up and throw it out. But luckily, I was there to rescue it.
Yes, that's right. Yep, that's great. I'm so excited. I want to row it someday. I can't wait.
Yay. Yes, yes, we will do a podcast from the double this
Yeah.
summer. We'll have to find a
Yep.
a weekend where you can come down and we'll
Hmm.
and we'll go, or I could bring it out because it does fit on a minivan. We do know that. I could bring it out to you and I could visit you out there with the
Where do you,
double.
yeah, where do you store it? At the boathouse or?
I
Okay.
store it at the boathouse right
Hmm.
now, so it's at Genesee Waterway Center. Speaking of like my rack fees are due. I gotta remember.
Me too. For my, yeah, I have to
I
do
gotta
that too.
remember to pay
Hmm.
those. But I store my single, the single that I repaired. It's in my garage.
Okay.
So Yeah, so that saves me a little bit of money. So,
Hmm.
but then you have to transport it every time you want to row it, which is kind of,
Yeah.
but then I can always row it somewhere else. Like I'm
Hmm.
not always committed to being on the river. Like I rode it like the first and only time that I rode it out at Braddock's Bay, which is on Lake Ontario. So,
Oh, is
yeah,
it a protected area of the lake?
it's relatively protected,
Yeah.
and it has like a lot of like little inlets and stuff. The problem was is that the seaweed had kind of grown up. Remember, I got stuck in the seaweed,
Hmm.
so I think like the idea of going out there like will be earlier in the season,
Hmm.
so the seaweed isn't as high. It's just
Hmm.
like a lot of those like little inlets, like you can row them and like in a single, but after a certain point in the season, the seaweeds and stuff has kind of grown up, and you can't get through there. So. I just have to watch that because I just don't want to damage it doing
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Or damage myself or get myself stuck. But I mean,
Yep.
it was pretty hilarious when I did dump it. Like I thought it was deep. And so I like dumped myself in like butt first and then I stood up and I was like, oh, I literally stepped out of the boat. But I didn't realize that. So now I know.
Ooh, it must have been a pretty murky water.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it was so like it literally looked like pine trees underneath the water. It was so
Oh,
the plants had grown up so much.
yeah.
Like so I couldn't see how deep it was. I was like,
Yeah.
this is super deep or no, not deep. Waste.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get some more good rowing in with that. And I just have to be careful because the deck is it's a soft top deck. So like
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, if I flip this thing, there's like the potential that it could sink. Like it would
Hmm.
be over. Like, like if it gets punctured and I flip it, like that's it. I don't know if I'd
No.
ever be able to rescue it. So I'm like in my mind, I'm like, I have to be very careful with it.
Hmm.
Just be very careful. No flipping the boat. No crashing into anything, like being very conscious of that. So, but I'm
And what?
hoping, okay.
Oh, sorry. What was the make of the single again?
It's a Pinert. So it's a
Pioneer. Okay. Yep.
1981 Pinert. So yeah, and I actually like I talked to the Pinert people and when I was like looking for different parts, they sent me a bunch of different things. I took pictures of everything. I'm like, I don't know if this place is original. And they're like, no, that's original. I'm like, it's like made like it's like cut out of like a pressed board and I was like, are these the original holes? And they're like, yep, those are original holes, the original, original seat, like everything. It's very interesting to see the workarounds for all like the things that we kind of take for granted in a modern boat. Like
Hmm.
the decking is wooden, so then there's like these little plates, like I don't know, probably like 2 by 3 that go underneath the tracks. The tracks are metal, but then connected to like a wooden frame. So
Hmm.
then these little plates are drilled into the bottom of the wooden frame of the track, and then the track is screwed into the wooden decking. And that's how the track stays on the boat. Whereas like now we have the ones where you go underneath and you loosen them, and that's kind of
Hmm.
how, it's interesting to see how, they kind of you were trying to create adjustability when there really weren't, the ability to do that. Like even like the rigger has like these it's like a sandwich layer of multiple plates. So you can move like the oarlock around based on like there's like lots of holes in the plates and little screws everywhere. And so you can make adjustments to with because they didn't have like that, like the
Hmm.
sliding pins and like it's just very interesting to see how like that progression um from the old technology to like what we have now, which
Yeah.
everything's very like quick release and
Hmm.
adjustability, fix it on the water, that kind of thing. Whereas like you would set your rig and like that would be it. Like
Yeah.
you weren't adjusting anything on the water, you
Yeah.
weren't, doing anything extra. I mean, your oars were a set length. I mean, it's kind of
Hmm.
like,
Yeah. It
once
is what it is.
it
Yeah.
is what it is. So hopefully you can row it. I mean, I guess they had clams, so you could clam up.
Yeah.
And,
I was wondering, I wonder where they came up with clams because, I mean, I think we had them, but I don't
hmm
remember using them. Maybe we did, but I
I
wonder how long
remember
they've been around.
Yeah, I remember only using it like I could hear like, oh, we need them because it's windy. Like that
Mm,
would be kind of like, or but I mean like the real use is like that headwind or having a lot of resistance. Like say you got like a
hmm
lot of current, like you could use the clams to help with the leverage because the clam what it does is it makes the inboard longer. So
hmm
then it's almost like the idea of like pushing a door further away from the hinge.
hmm
So, like, that's always how I explain it to the kids. So I'm like, well, if it feels heavy to you and you've got a clam on there, like, feel free to put the clam on. I
hmm
mean, if we're stopped and you want to see how it feels, like I love the idea of like giving your athletes a little bit of ownership to the idea of like, yeah, you can change this up. Now, everybody messing around with the rig is like
Yeah.
is quite annoying because then you get a boat that's a club boat and like because what I like to do at the beginning of a practice, especially if I don't know the team or because like I do a lot of like filling in.
hmm
I'll have them put the boat in slings and then I'll stand at the bow and I'll just look at like where the oarlocks are. Like because
hmm
we're not going out with like the poppers on starboard side being like all the way up and the poppers on port side being all the way down because that's going to create the boat's going to want to right itself and
hmm
somebody's always going to be on the water. So
Yeah.
like I always kind of like I try to like okay, let's see what we can do with what the boat's kind of set up right now. Because I mean, even just like you just like a regular master's practice where people want to go out and have a good row, and I always think a good row comes from balance and
hmm
taking the time to like make sure that you're setting that crew up for the most amount of balance that you possibly could. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's always something that's kind of fun to kind of see because sometimes I'll go and I'll be like, all the
Yeah.
all of them will be in different spots, but it's really, I mean, it's easy to eye. Like if you put
Yeah.
it in a sling and you look down, you can tell which ones look really, really out of place, and then it's
hmm
easy fix. So,
Yeah.
and then just trying to get everybody to finish in the same spot too. When
Yeah.
you check in everybody, like, oh, move those shoes back or move those shoes up to just make sure everybody's kind of in the same spot. But we have a couple more minutes left.
Okay.
And thinking, what should we talk about? Well, we have our guests that are going to be coming on. We've got to figure that out.
Yes, we got to figure that out. I got both of their numbers, so hopefully we can start arranging it. I know Todd was in Boston this weekend, so he was kind of tied
Yeah,
up, but hopefully, yeah, we'll get them get a recording with them, and then we'll be able to post that soon. I know we've been teasing it for a few weeks now, but we will get that done.
yeah,
Yeah, so we will work on that, and then in the meantime, if it's just us, we will have a new thing to talk about next time.
yeah. We'll keep chatting, rowing, and I'll
Yep.
see if I can get in touch with some of. I know I said it last time, but I want to
hmm
send out a quick test to my contact at Westside and see if they have any more information on
Okay,
what's going on with Buffalo. So
great.
that'll be good.
Sounds good. All right,
All
Adrian, well, have a
right.
good day.
You take care and have a good day.
Okay.
Everybody who's listening, have a
Yeah.
great day, week, and keep listening. Like and follow and all that good
hmm
stuff it helps our podcast out. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
all
for
right.
listening.
Thanks. Take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.